I'm Andy Wallace. I'm an independent game designer, a creative coder, and the vice president of Death by Audio Arcade.
And I'm Juno Morrow, the co-creator of Circumnavigators. I make lots of weird art and design stuff, like Circumnavigators. It's a game, it's physical. There are like buttons on it, and there are like LED lights around it, and you run in a circle, and you try to you have like a little LED that's like spinning around, and you're trying not to hit little walls that you move with buttons and things that do other stuff, and you're like running into your friends, and then people start smashing stuff, and then people go yay when they win or lose.
So it was the Alt Control Game Jam, which was hosted. It was a joint venture between Death by Audio Arcade and Brooklyn Research. And so a bunch of us, Juno and I included, obviously, went to Brooklyn Research, and they just kind of like dumped a whole like tray of microcontrollers and servos and other fun electronics. I'd say most of us there had a little bit of experience working with like Arduino and those kind of things before. I know that Juno and I definitely both had. I think a few people there was like maybe their first time doing anything. And so we were just kind of going through parts and brainstorming on ideas.
You know, trying things, many things. What's fun? What isn't fun? Is this fun? Is this weird? Is this unique? Is this interesting? And what do we have? So like, you know, you have like constraints with like materials in like an event like that where we have all this stuff. Like, let's do something with this stuff that's interesting.
And I don't know, Juno, we got to talking, I think, just about like running around something. I think that was like the central idea. I know on day 2, we bought like a big recycling bin from Home Depot. So I remember I just like walked with it for like 20
classic
blocks.
Blue bin.
Yeah, because I live in New York and don't have a car. So we wrapped all these LEDs around it.
I mean, I remember like, so the original name was Column. So we were thinking about like a column. We were thinking about like LED strips and like buttons to interact with them in different places. Like, I think like being like physical, like where you have to move was like a very important part of it. I like prototyped it in processing first. And I think actually like that became like the basis for the early game. So like there was a way of like displaying it and trying to understand the mechanics and how things are working digitally. But it's totally different from the physical game. The physicality is such an essential part of what it is. But yeah, so it's interesting to kind of like strip a game down. Like, it's still a digital game, but it's not a video game. And like the fact that you have this, I mean, this interesting object that is like totally dedicated to one thing is so counter to like all of our lives, you know, like we're like our lives revolve around this. Like, look at my sticker, it's cute, right? Like our these like multi-use devices that can do everything. They're super flexible. You know, you can play Doom on it. You can, you know, whatever. Or Crisis, or I don't know. How old am I? Yeah, having something that's like very unique, and I think that's like a big draw for it.
One of our goals really from the get-go that stuck with it through the whole design was that we wanted to make sure players had to move. And like one way of kind of forcing that was just making sure that you can't see the whole board without moving. Like, if you could just see where your dot was going around without moving, then like, why would you? So we definitely had the goal of forcing the player to at least move. I don't even know that we had a dot at first, but like forcing the player to move around a thing and just like obfuscating part of the screen is a good way to do that.
And then you're like kind of like following in your head, like trying to imagine where the other person is based on like where you last saw them. And then also based on like, just like, so like people are trying to like sabotage each other or like by guessing where they're at, and they're guessing based on like where they like, you know, have mentally mapped them, the pixel to be kind of, but then they're also like thinking like, oh, my, you know, the other player's over there, so I'm just gonna like smash a bunch of buttons over there and like cause some chaos, but like they don't actually know what it is. And like, I think that like guessing but not knowing and that like desperation is like a really important part of Circumnavigators and what makes it fun.
But we kind of like unintentionally, I guess just from really starting with the LED screen, I feel like we we bucked some arcade norms in ways that neither of us really realized at first. So for instance, we're asking players to move, which like already most arcade games do not do that. And second, the buttons are like a shared resource. Like, all the buttons belong to everybody, which like when I say it out loud sounds very weird, but we didn't realize that when we were first doing it. And so we often see this like a little bit of a learning curve with new players where they're just not used to being like, oh, we can all press any of these buttons. It's not like these are my buttons, these are your buttons.
It's really interesting to watch people play when they've never interacted with it. They're like kind of like look at it and they're like, you know, we used to have like instruction cards around the top, and people would pick up the instruction card and they'd look at it and they'd like look down and then they'd like start playing it and then they'd walk away. But then someone else who's like played it before would go and play, and they'd start explaining to someone else like how to play, how it works and stuff. They get really excited and then they start playing it, and then the other person will see them having fun and be like, oh, this is a fun game. Oh, I didn't know this was a fun game. This is weird. Wow, they're like running in everyone. Okay, it's chaos. And then they get interested again. I feel like I've seen that like multiple times where it's like people don't get it at first, but then suddenly they get it because it's really simple. But like Andy was saying, it's like bucks norms and expectations for like what an arcade game is. It's like going in expecting to play a board game and it's like board game Twister or something. I have like a long history of making things that make people uncomfortable or are hard or painful. And so I don't know, I think it's like you can make really interesting experiences when you just like get out of like this like way of thinking that like knowing what games are and what they should be. And like, you know, I talk to students about this all the time about, you know, sure, you can make another platforming like Super Mario clone if you want to, but someone's already done it better. So like, why not do something fucking weird that no one's ever done and just like make it like something that stands out and is interesting to engage with. So that's like kind of my philosophy, is just make weird shit that stands out that you would find interesting and like make you think and maybe feel something.
I like making objects that require some experimentation. Like if it's digital or physical, I think that's a really fun part of games. I mean, mastery is really satisfying in games as well, but often that first part of just like poking at the system and kind of seeing what you get, I think is really exciting. And so I like making things that have that sort of experience. I think Particle Mace that's something I was really trying to do there. And then I like designing games for public spaces, which is just really different from designing games for the home. So, you know, Circumnavigators, we have you like running around with people, which I think is just fun, right? Like, even if you don't know them, like, it's just fun to run around, and we don't get a ton of excuses to do that day to day. One of the joys of making arcade games and physical installations is that you get to actually see people play it. I've released a lot of games digitally, and that can be really fun too, but usually I like see forum posts or get an email or maybe even like a positive review, but all of those are kind of mediated experiences, and they're just like different from being like, there's 3 people losing their mind 15 feet away from me playing this game. Like, that's so satisfying.
It's great to know that like, you know, it can live in a space like Wonderville, like most of the time, where people can come and like check it out, show their friends. It's like a reliable thing that they can't get anywhere else. Like, you can't play it at home. You can't play it in like the processing prototype that I made unless you want to have like no fun at all. You have to like physically be there. You have to like have that energy, and like you're not going to experience it anywhere else. So like that like location centric like physical energy is like so amazing, and it's so great to have like a place where you can go and experience stuff like that.
But yeah, thanks. And you know, throw some money at Death by Audio Arcade. Let's try to save the arcade.
Yes, please. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful space. It's a wonderful organization. And like, so, I mean, this stuff wouldn't exist without Death by Audio Arcade. And like, Wonderville is such a wonderful home for all of these wonderful creations.
That's how we got the
Yeah.
name.
It's really great. So like, you know, please help support the community and make more things like this happen.